Welcome back. This is Chris, and today I'd like to share with you how to choose and take care of a Chinese cleaver. Cleavers are really important because whenever you're stir frying, what you want to do is cut things into bite-sized pieces, which allows them to cook evenly and quickly. So let's get started. So the all-purpose Chinese cleaver is about 7 inches long, and we have several different kinds here. I'm going to start with probably the original, the most basic cleaver, and this is a carbon steel cleaver. This one's made in China, and it's a famous brand. It's called the Three Rams brand, and you can tell this is carbon steel because it's not shiny like the stainless steel cleavers that I have here. And I'll talk about each of these in turn. So carbon steel, it's not shiny and it's not the most durable blade. Carbon steel is softer than the stainless steel. Stainless steel is actually a mixture of metals. The hardest metal being nickel, and that's what really gives it its stainless qualities and also makes it really hard. What's good though about carbon steel is that they're relatively easy to sharpen. Of course, they're easy to sharpen, which also means that they're also easy to make dull. But if you enjoy caring for knives, carbon steel is a good option. And there's 3 ways of taking care of the blade that I'm going to show you. This here is called a steel, and it's not used for taking metal off. It really is just to align the microscopic teeth that are on all knives. If you look at a knife under a microscope, you'll see that there's little teeth, and as soon as you use the knife, the teeth kind of get all unaligned. And what the steel does is it just basically aligns those little teeth. And so if you look closely at it, you'll see that there's little ridges in the steel. And those ridges are what line the teeth up. So what I'll do is I basically just hold this at about a 23-degree angle, and I'll talk about that in a minute, and you will basically just slide that knife right across the steel, and that will align the teeth. So how do you get the right angle? Well, the easy way to do it is just to remember that 90 degrees is straight up and down, and half of that is 45, and half of that is about 23 degrees, or 22.5 degrees. So 90, half of that, and then half of that. And so you'll have that. And you'll notice I'm holding the blade with my thumb and index finger to make sure that that angle stays the way I want it. You don't have to go fast, but if you want, you can. Just like Wile E. Coyote. Another way you can hold this steel is you can hold the steel straight up and down, and you can go on both sides of the steel like that. So that's another way you can do it as well. So I've done a pretty good job of sharpening this. If you need, if your knife, and this is only used if your knife is already sharp. This is just keeps it sharp. If you need to take a little bit of metal, this honing ceramic, so this is made of ceramic, which is harder than metal, and this will actually take off small, kind of microscopic parts of the blade. And so it's used the same way. And so if you have an old knife or you haven't sharpened your knife for a long time, you could use the ceramic to get that blade sharp. Then after you've done that, you would then use the steel to finish it. And you can tell that the ceramic has taken some metal off because you can see these dark areas on the steel, and that's where a little bit of the metal has been taken off. If you have a really, really old blade, you'll actually end up taking some rust off, and you'll see that there'll be a little bit of shininess along the edge of the blade. All of these blades are sharp, so there's not going to be rust on them. So if your blade has been really abused and it's not sharp and it won't cut, by the way, a dull blade is always more dangerous than a sharp blade. A sharp blade will cut where you want, a dull blade will slip and cut you. You can use a hone, and hones come in different forms. This is a diamond hone, and it is used to actually take significant steel off. There's a coarse side, which is this, and then there's a fine side, which is this. And what you would do with this is you would hold this hone steady, and you would simply draw it across. And you can really kind of tell that that coarse side is taking metal. Or you could use this finer side. Just draw that. You want to keep that 22 and a half degree angle. Just like that. All right, but my knives are okay, so I'm not going to mess with that too much. A way that you can tell if your knife is, if your edge is sharp, is if you look down the blade like this and look at the edge, there should be no shiny reflections coming off that sharp edge. If there's a shiny reflection, it means that there's some dullness that the light is bouncing off of. And so you want to take care of that before you use your knife. It's a good habit every time you use your knife. Before you use it, just give it a half a dozen strokes. And then after you use it, before you put it away, give it another half a dozen strokes. And if you do that, your knife will stay sharp unless you abuse it by cutting something you shouldn't. This is an all-purpose cleaver, and it's intended for vegetables and meat and things like that. It's not intended for cutting bones. Before we talk about cutting bones, let's talk about a couple other types of cleavers. So here's a stainless steel cleaver, and this one is, it's a much harder steel. It's easier to take care of in terms of it, keeping shiny. You want to dry your cleavers, anything that you're using. But the difference is, if I don't dry this cleaver, it will rust. Stainless steel, it won't rust. I should still dry it though. But the same thing, you'll just, before you use it, you'll just give that some strokes, just like that. So this one here is made by Dexter. And it's a Chinese cleaver, but it's not made in China. It's made in the United States. The 3 Rams is made in China. So if we want to get really fancy, this is the Pride and Joy given to me as a present by Joan. And you'll notice that there's some waves in this in the metal, and those waves are characteristic of a type of steel called Damascus steel. And the way Damascus steel is formed is they take a piece of metal and then they fold it in half and they pound it together and they fold it in half and they keep folding this Damascus steel, and each time there's layers that are made and heated, right? It's heated, thank you. And this can be done by folding it, but it can also be done in forging as well. If you're one of my favorite shows is Forging in Fire, and they kind of they'll often make the contestants make Damascus steel, and it can be in different patterns. But this particular pattern is really nice. It looks like wood. This is a shun knife, and I think this shun knife is probably worth all of these other knives put together, a few $100 to get those. This one here is also a shun, but it's not Damascus. But what it is, it's a heavy duty knife. I'll show you the difference in the thickness. All right, this knife, this cleaver, this one is made for cutting through bones. So if you wanted to take a chicken apart, or you needed to cut some ribs to make spare ribs, this is the one you would use, the shun knife, heavy duty. So when you are done using your knife, you want to make sure you store it correctly. When I'm teaching cooking and I'm traveling, what I'll do is I'll take a knife and I'll wrap it in a cloth just like this to protect it. And we could do the same. So we can wrap more than one, just like that, to keep them separate. And then I would just tie a string around that or a rubber band, and I'd be able to just put that right into my bag. If you don't travel, you're just at home, what you can do is you can use one of these scabbards, which is kind of cool. Is you just put that right in there. My good friends at Now You're Cooking have those, which is kind of nice. If you're at home, do not, under any circumstances, just throw your knife into a drawer. What you want to do is you want to either have it protected, or you'll want to just put it in a knife holder. So like one of these. So what we would do is we just put that right in the knife holder. And so that's nice and safe. The other thing you want to make sure you never ever do is to put your sharp knives into the dishwasher. If you can kind of imagine, here's your knife sitting in the dishwasher, and swirling around in the dishwasher is the water, but with that water there's bits of food. And so literally thousands of times you can have food hitting against the sharpness of your blade, and it will basically, it's like using your knife 1,000 times without sharpening it. So you're going to really make your knives dull. Also, if you have a wooden handle on your knife, it's going to weather that handle. So there's you're kind of taking care of your knives. The other thing about taking care of your knives is you want to have high quality cutting surface. The surface you don't want to use on your knives would be a stone surface, because that will make them dull right away. Glass cutting boards are just not good for knives because glass is hard and it will dull your knife. I like the wooden cutting boards, wooden cutting surfaces. This is a nice end grain board, and what's nice about end grain is that if you look at it closely, it has the end grain. It's almost like little fingers that are kind of grabbing the food, and so you put your food here, and it won't move around. The way to keep your board from moving around would be to take a wet paper towel or a cloth or something like that and just lay it down on your surface and put your board right on top of it, and your board won't move. So if I had that, this board wouldn't be moving at all. So wood is great. You do want to make sure that you wash it with hot water. Some people will wash it with vinegar after that to disinfect it, and then wipe it down with a food grade oil to keep it from drying out. So this is a nice end grain board. These are also wood, but they are actually made from wood fiber. And what's nice about them is they're very lightweight. You can put these in the dishwasher. You would not put this in the dishwasher because it would delaminate the glue. So don't do that. But these guys, if you wanted to, you could put them in the dishwasher. I don't. I simply treat them like wood, but you can. And this weighs probably a quarter of what this weighs, which is good. And there's different sizes. It's good to have probably 3 different boards so that you can separate your meat and your vegetables and your fish. The other board that you could use are these synthetic boards. And I believe in commercial settings, these are often used because they're easy to disinfect. They're very low maintenance. They're also pretty easily replaced. So it's a kind of a silicone or plastic board. So that's all I have for today about cleavers. If you have any questions, you can post them down below and we'll try to answer them. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.